Hey guys, it's Trey here once again, back with another video. And in this tutorial, we're going to be continuing on with our Node web server. And in the last tutorial, we did a little bit of development and actually created a basic web server, a Node server, my mistake, with Express. And then we deployed that developed code to our web server, but we haven't tested it yet. So we're going to go ahead now, start off by testing this code to make sure it's working on the web server as it was in the development environment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ls to show you that we do have our node server tar folder here that we have decompressed from here. So if we cd into our node server tar, we see that we have our files, but we need to actually install those dependencies that we were using, like the express and the cores and the helmet. So if we try to run this now, so let's do node server.js, we'll get an error because we don't have any of those dependencies installed because we didn't copy over that node modules file. But that node modules folder has a lot of different files in it, and we don't want to copy that over. What we can do is we can just recreate that folder here, and we can do that by running npm I. So npm I is short for npm install, and it's going to install all of the needed dependencies, which are inside of this package.json file. So if we look in the package.json file, we will see that we have cores, express, and helmet. So it knows to install these dependencies when we run npm I or npm install, whatever you want to say. All right, so now we have it installed. We can run it and say node server.js, and now it should run. See, so it says started server on port 3000. So if we go back to our code and we try to hit our endpoint here, which remember is just a slash. So if we try to hit that endpoint, let's see what happens. So we're going to curl http / node server.info 3000 / and it just hangs up. You guys remember why? Because we did not set the firewall to allow port 3000. The call is just hanging up. It's not, the server's not going to respond to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our server, and we will stop this first by hitting Control-C. And then here we're going to actually allow port 3000 through our UFW firewall. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in sudo UFW allow 3000 /TCP. All right, so I added the rule. So now let's check it. We're going to say sudo UFW status, and there it goes. So now we see that it's allowing through from anywhere to port 3000 on TCP. All right, so let's go ahead and run our server again. So we're going to say node server.js. All right, started the server. Let's go back to our code over here, and in our terminal, we're going to run that same command. And boom, you see, we got our hello world back. So we see that is working. Remember that if you're running this, you have to put your domain name in here, pretty much your server name that you got from GoDaddy. All right. So now we got that going. We can go back to our server here. I'm going to stop this by hitting Control-C. And now let's take a look at our, actually, let's just do it in the code. So let's go back to our code. So as we can see here, we have our server running here on port 3000. What we're going to want to do is, instead of running, let me come down here so I can show you. So instead of running it and going to HTTP, we're going to want to make this connection secure and add SSL. So we're going to be running going to HTTPS, and that will have us have a secure connection. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to need to install some other packages, some other npm packages, and we are also going to have to add some things in here for our code. But in order for us to make all of those changes, we're going to need to have an SSL certificate. So on our web server, we're going to install a SSL certificate, but I don't want to use a self-signed certificate, and I also don't want you guys to have to pay for an SSL certificate just to, test this out. So what we're going to use is a certificate service called Let's Encrypt. So if we go back to our server, we can install Let's Encrypt, and then from there we can go ahead and install an SSL certificate on our server that we can use for our node server. All right. So in order to install an SSL certificate, we need to install Let's Encrypt. So we're going to say sudo apt install Let's Encrypt. All right. Yes. It's going to install everything that we need. All right. Once that's installed, we can go ahead and install our SSL certificate. The first thing we're going to need to do before we actually do the install of the SSL certificate is we're going to need to allow Let's Encrypt to use our server. So Let's Encrypt is going to use port 80 for this. So we need to allow UFW to allow port 80 through. So we're going to say sudo UFW allow 80/TCP. All right. So now we've done that, we can go ahead and take a look at it. Sudo UFW status. Now we're allowing port 80. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to run sudo certbot cert only, and then we're going to do -- standalone, and then we're going to do -d, and then here is where you put your domain name. So I'm going to put nodeserver.info, and then I'm going to do another -d, and I'm going to put www.nodeserver.info. All right. So here it's going to ask to enter an email address. So I'm just going to put my email address. All right. I'm going to hit enter, and then it says agree to the terms of service. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then it says, will you be willing to share your email address? I'm going to say no. All right. Now it's doing it. All right, now we're good. So now it says, congratulations, your certificate and chain have been saved at, and it tells you where it's at. So we're going to need these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these and save them somewhere else. All right, so once you get those copied off and saved somewhere, we can use the created certificate to go ahead and allow our server to be used through HTTPS. Let's go ahead and go back to our code. So now that we're in our code, we need to go ahead and start installing the things that we will need. So I'm going to do npm i-s, and then it's -S. So I'm going to install HTTPS, and this is going to allow us to use our certificate that we just created. So if we go into our server.js file, and underneath cores we'll just add HTTPS, and then we're going to require HTTPS. All right. Then we're going to need to say const secure port underscore port, and we're going to set that to be the actual real secure port. And then as far as port 3000 goes, we're going to switch this and go to port 80. So these are the real ports that are used for web servers. So this is the regular HTTP port, and this is the 443 port, which is for secure HTTPS. All right, so we're going to use the real ports here. So swap out those ports, and then also we're going to set that path. That remember I told you we needed to copy those files down. Those file paths down. So this is where we're going to use those. So I'm going to put SSL path, and then inside of here we're going to copy in those paths. So I'm gonna go here, and then it's what was it? Node server.info with a trailing slash. All right. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and we're gonna create another object called options. All right. And inside of here, we're gonna open up this object. One other thing that we do need to import, which I forgot, is the file system. So we're going to say const fs equals require fs. We're going to need this to actually read the files off the disk. All right. So inside of options, we're going to put in two fields. We're going to have a key, which is going to be fs.read file sync. And then we're going to say SSL path, and then we're going to add on priv key, it's lowercase, priv key.pem, and then we're also going to have a cert, and it's going to be fs.read file sync SSL path, and then we're going to put in the cert.pem. All right. So these two are going to be needed in order to actually establish a secure connection. So once we get these options out of the way, we can scroll down here to the bottom where we have app.listen. Under that app.listen, we can go down here and we can go HTTPS.create server, and then we're going to put in the options, and we're also going to put in the app, and then we're going to do .listen, and then we're going to put in the secure port. And then here, we're going to have another callback where we're just going to console.log. And then we're going to say that the, what did we say last time? We're going to say started server. And then we're just going to put HTTPS. And then on port. And then we're going to put secure port. All right. So this is going to start it up on that secure port. All right. So we'll have the app running on port 80, and then we're going to have our secure app running on port 443. All right. So this is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and repeat the process of deploying this to our server. All right. So what I'm going to do first is remove the old compressed file. So I'm going to do rm node server tar.tar.gz. We're going to remove that file. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, after I deleted those out, I'm just gonna recopy these in. So I'm gonna do copy, and I'll paste them in here. All right, so now we have the newest copies in here. All right, and then we're going to zip this up. So we're gonna run tar-cf, and then we're gonna do node server tar.tar.gz, and I'm gonna do node server tar. All right, so now we have the newest files in this archive. And so what we're going to do is we're going to type in SCP, and then we're going to do -P space 7777. If you are using the original SSH port, which is 22, then you don't need to put this. You only need to put the port if you change that port, because by default, the SCP is going to use 22 or whatever. So you'll be good to go. But I need to add it since I changed that. So I'm do port -P 7777, and then I want to move this node server.tar.gz file, and then I'm going to do cooperj at node server.info, and then I'm going to do a colon. I'm going to do /home/cooperj. All right, and that should move this file. I'm going to type in my passphrase. All right, and it copied the file over. So now if we go back to our server, and here, let me back out of here. All right, so now I'm back into the home folder. So this file here is the new file. So let me do an ls dash t, no, ls dash lt. All right, so we can see that this was the latest file that got pushed over. So let's go ahead and I'm going to remove the old node server file. So I'm going to do rm-r and then the node server tar. So now it's just the archive file here. Now we're going to run tar-xf and then we're going to say that file. And now it should pull it out. Let's go into node server tar ls. All right, so let's check out our server file to make sure it is the new one. So as we can see, it's the new one. Has all of the HTTPS changes in it. All right. So now we're going to need to run the npm I again so we can install everything. All right. And let's do an ls. Now we see our node modules file is there. So now we should be able to run this. Oh, one thing I forgot. Since we're using, let me open this up. Vim. Since we're using our actual real ports here, so port 80 and port 443, these ports are protected, so you will have to run them as root. If you don't, I mean, obviously you have root access if this is your server, so you should be able to run this program as root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this application as root. So let's go back. We're going to run this again. We're going to say sudo node server.js, and then you put in your password. All right, so now it says server started server on port 80, and started server HTTPS on port 443. So let's go ahead and go back to our code so we can use that terminal there. And in this terminal, we're going to curl the regular HTTP. Make sure everything's working there still. So it's node server.info and then slash. All right, so as you can see, we got hello world. We don't have to put port 3000 anymore because we're running on port 80. Port 80 is the default, HTTP port. So we don't even have to specify a port for that. We just run it to the slash and we will get our hello world back. So let's do the same thing with HTTPS, curl HTTPS / node server.info. As you can see, we didn't set our firewall to allow port 443, so it's hanging up. So let's go ahead and go back to our server. We're going to stop this by hitting Control-C, and then we're going to set up our firewall to allow port 443 through. So we're going to say sudo ufw allow 443/TCP. All right, and then we can always check sudo ufw status, and now we see 443 is there as well. All right, so now that we've done that, let's run our sudo node server.js. Everything's running again. Let's head back so we can do our curl. All right, so now we have curl HTTPS, hit enter, and okay, I think this is curl on my machine that's making me do that. Let's try to do this on our browser. I think our browser will let us do it. So I think our browser will let us do it. Let's do https / node server.info. There we go. Hello world. And as you can see, we're using HTTPS. The connection is secure here. Let's see. Can we check out some more? See, verified by Ssl Encrypt. So as you can see, we have our lock here, which means we are sending secure transmission of this information. All right. So HTTPS works, and if we go to HTTP, it looks like it automatically put us to HTTPS. So looks like what is this? Firefox pushes you to the most secure. So that's good too. we're good to go. So now we have a secure app running. All right, so if we go back to our code here, we can see that we're using HTTPS. All right, so I think I'm going to stop this here. We're going to continue on in the next tutorial. So thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel and all that jazz. And I will see you guys in the next video.